Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Brian, Career Advice UK, and I will be live streaming for about the next hour or so, taking your questions on anything career related. That includes anything on CVs, cover letters, interviews, apprenticeships, choosing university, discussing UK current job market, anything career related, in case you want to know. I also run and own Leap for Careers at leapstartcareers.com, which provides both free and a small charge of support for those of you who are looking to get help navigating the UK job market. There are guides for download and purchase. There's also services that I do offer to help you from from discounted CV writing for those who are graduating, all the way through coming and supporting you all at every step through making a career change. So I would encourage you to take a look at leapstartcareers.com. And today's going to be an interesting day. And why do you think is that? It is because I will be talking a bit about both interviewing and also to the current job situation in the UK, where people do send out their CVs and just don't get, hey, Danny boy, good to see you. Thank you for joining. And don't get a response um, when they do it. A lot of people think it's them, it's something that they're doing wrong. And it can be because it is such a competitive job market right now, very soul destroying and keep you from applying from jobs. And I'm going to tell you as you listen today that it isn't really. Um, well, thank you, Danny boy. It is not you, but it is the market. And it is the job market that is in many ways failing you, because you should be at least be given a feedback. And if you have looked on other social media sites, I do post on them, and I've talked about my own experience, because right now trying to get Leap Forward Careers up and running means still I have to do a bit of work to get it up where it can start to make it profitable for me to just do it on a full-time basis. Until I can do that, still need to work and talked about my own experiences, because for me, I have a hidden disability, asthma. And 99% of the time, I wouldn't say 99, but a good chunk of the time, it really doesn't impact me. Where it does impact me is when I get a flare up. And when I get a flare up, things go downhill very quickly. And so, as I try to look for a job, my next kind of locum role, I've had a few. It is, yeah, it is totally different. Because for me right now, because I work in the public sector, and one of my biggest frustrations is how things get handled in the public sector, because I will apply under the disability confidence scheme. Um, and I do that mainly because I've kind of tried to go swing the other way. And Hey, little Bob, if you want to come on as a guest, thank you for the share. I just always ask, give me a summary of what you want to talk about so I'm prepared. Um, yeah, and it is right now. And you do hit a good point, Danny. The one thing that is really hard right now for graduates is the fact, because graduation for university is happening right now over the next couple of weeks. Basically, the graduate schemes have virtually disappeared. There are very few graduate schemes out there right now. My understanding is less than 10,000. So what does that mean? For those of you who are graduating, it will mean probably an application pool of about 100, 140, 150 applicants for each role. I will get to you 1 second, WXLD. Um, yeah, it's probably just hold off on going live because I've had a few issues with it recently when I try to do guest spots. Let me kind of get through this and let's see where things go. Um, and it is a very difficult spot for graduates right now. Probably 150 applicants for each graduate scheme. So it means, it is very competitive. And so what you need to do is to basically get your CV and application to stand out. And how do you do that? The the quickest and the best way is to do it this way, and it is something I can easily talk about in a live situation. And it doesn't take a lot to do. All you need to do is be strategic in your application. And what do I mean by being strategic? I mean, you take the time to read the, hey, Blair, you take the time to read the, um, the job description and match up your skills to it. If you do that and you can find a job where you match about 80% would be, and it is a good chance, not a guaranteed chance, that you'll be interviewed. And by doing that, not completely, I don't disagree, but I think at the moment, Danny boy, I think there are jobs where AI doesn't dismantle things. And I'll get to that in a moment. Um, it is, you need to be able to align your CV with um the job description. If you don't, and you just do it as a blanket CV going out every time, it is going to get rejected. And it's because it will show the gaps. It will show that you haven't paid attention to it. Now, getting to your question, WXL, if you're looking for a summer job, the best ones are always, I will say, look at hospitality. Um, Hospitality is a good one. However, with the current economic conditions right now, it may be a bit difficult because of the higher expenses, people out of work, people not traveling as much. It may not be there. It is going back to Danny's question. One of the jobs at this moment that are somewhat insulated from AI, because what's happening now with AI is that it's replacing a lot of the repetitive tasks. So anything where you can do a repetitive task, like entering data, creating spreadsheets, typing, transcribing, a lot of that is beginning to go to the wayside because AI can, to a certain extent, do it. And I've worked with AI with a lot of kind of administrative functions, and it still makes mistakes. There's still going to need to be oversight. And so the jobs are not going to immediately evaporate. But when when you look at AI writing code, it does a pretty good job of writing code. And what you really need to do is just to be able to kind of fix it, spot it, work through the issues. So the point I'm making is this: if you're looking for a summer job, the best ones are the ones where you can have and do the human contact thing, because people are still looking. Hey, Sheps, good to see you. Long time no see. Um, it is a way to be able to get the job. It is one that's going to be staying around. So it is a good solid job for, oh, thank you. It's kind of my morning shirt as I get up. Um, and so take a look at it. Take a look at the retail, take a look at hospitality. Hospitality, I always say, if you're looking for some job, it's a good one because from an economic standpoint, it tends to peak during summertime because people will do the travel, people will stay. And so it is a great way to get a job because typically when the summer season begins to end, people go back to work, school returns, the jobs tend to naturally die out, and hotels and bed sits and whatever will start to cut back on staff. Um, so what I would say to you is, look, hospitality, it's always the place to go for summertime. And I'm kind of going back to the discussion with AI. I always think that when I think about AI, I am very cognizant of what happened about 30, 40 years ago with advent of computers, because computers have been around for, in reality, about 100 years. Um, but computers themselves really haven't made its way into the workplace. It hasn't really made its way into the homes, except for about the last 30, 40 years. Hey, Jaden, thank you for the likes. So about the last 30, 40 years, computers just started to make it into the home, and it becomes I don't I've read a few articles. One article I read on AI taking over. Um AI, for AI to work and for AI to be successful, it needs to make things more efficient for humans, not replace humans. Um, and I think when you think about it, Jaden, and kind of what I was getting alluding to with the kind of computers, because if for those of you who can remember that, computers came out, like I said, they've been around for 100 years. Um, they used to be these kind of very big mainframes that would take like a whole office. I mean, very big, and you had to have like coolers, air conditioning to keep them nice and cool. And so they just never really kind of um never really up until until about the late 80s, early 90s, really had a place really in business. It was only the large ones because you had to do um um you may be in the wrong group here, Mohammed. Um it does still need to have human development. Um and so when we take a look at, um looking at computers, the big thing that people would fight and push against about was the fact that it was going to replace everything. And it was kind of almost like this. If you watch the older cartoons like Jetsons, it was kind of like this whole Jetson type of lifestyle where computers, you could order your groceries online, it would be delivered to you, you would be at home, kids would stay at home, and get taught by the computer, and it would be this whole kind of digital type of world. And so when computers started to come in late 80s, early 90s, there was a lot of pushback on it. And so when you started to think about jobs like teachers, jobs like accountants, jobs like clerks, cashiers, stock person, were all going to just be evaporated and replaced by computers because computers would run robots, robots could stock shelves, and we would see just basically a collapse in ultimately what it meant, collapse in jobs, because There would be, no high street. Everything would be replaced by computers. Everything would be ordered, delivered, and computers would sit there, automate, knowing when we started to run low in our fridge, order for us, and do all this and make our lives 100% easier. But what happened as computers started to make it into the mainstay and become part of society? There was a um so so what started to happen, people started to push back. And so what we saw, let me get you 1 second, Ethan, because I have a law degree and I can talk about that in a moment. And started to push back. And what really started to come back was this idea that people wanted to have human contact. So grocery stores stayed, the high street stayed, but what started to come was jobs to make things more efficient. And I think this is where we're headed with AI, to make it more efficient, not to replace humans. If you did, I think we would be in a larger, in a worse situation. To go to your question, Ethan, I hold a bachelor's and a master's degree in law. Um, are you thinking about practicing? Oh yeah, I think it will take a while, and I think it will be interesting to see what the next 5 to 10 years hold. But I think at the moment, I think AI will still be kind of on the wayside. People will still need to oversee and still develop it. Um, yeah. Okay. So if you want to go down the solicitor route, um, if do you have a training contract at this point? Do you have a training contract, Ethan? Because if you don't have a training contract and you go into your LPC, um, 40%, 2 out of 5 who entered the LPC without a training contract will graduate without one. So that's 40% of your LPC class will walk out without a training contract. And when I did my law degree, the one thing that was very consistent in the messaging was this: if you don't have a training contract, it will take you up to about 2 years or more to get one. And with this very kind of competitive market right now, with not a lot hiring, it may actually take you longer. So what you may be looking at is a very long, you may be, searching for a training contract for a couple of years, and you may be working minimum wage jobs as paralegal, um, to actually get your foot into the door to get that training contract. And so it may mean that, you have to be very dedicated. You have to have a lot of resilience because it is competitive. And very few employers right now are hiring, and the ones that are being very selective in their hiring because they can be choosy. And so what you really need to do is start thinking strategically and thinking about, what do you want to do? What areas do you want to practice? And start to look for ways to get and opportunities to get some exposure, some training. And one of the things I would recommend for you, if you haven't already, is get yourself onto LinkedIn and start every week. If you're thinking about, let's say, the field of company law, start looking at issues in company law and start writing something on LinkedIn about it. And make sure as you're writing it, you're targeting, making sure the audience you're writing for are like HR, legal recruiters. So when they're looking, um, at your post, they're keeping you in mind. They see you, and it does take a while. LinkedIn is not fast. It's not like TikTok. It's not like Facebook where you'll get like instant gratification. It takes months to develop a following on on LinkedIn. So take a while, make sure you respond back and get yourself, and respond to comments, start posting. If you start doing that, and start posting on a regular basis, like once a week, and responding to other people's replies, you'll start to develop a following. And that following may help open up the doors for you. Just make sure you're consistent and you speak on one topic. You don't really kind of vary it. One week you're talking about company law, the next week you're talking employment, the next week you're talking about hiring practices or something in the news. You need to be very consistent. And so what I would say to you is start to look at that. I would say in the back of your mind, if you are beginning just to hit dead road after dead road after dead road with the solicitor route and getting a training contract, the other option I would start to say to you is start to look at other options for you. And it may be that you look at like managerial, potentially HR, maybe get yourself some, your CIPD certification and, work in HR. The LPC along with your law degree would make you an ideal candidate to work in HR. In regards to employment law, especially if you hold your CIPD certification and credentials, because then that would open up a route for you. So I would say to you is start to come up with a plan, start to think about, what area of laws do you want to practice, because you will, if I remember right, because I don't practice, um, you get 3 areas of law that you do your training contract in. One is a contentious and 2 non-contentious areas. And I would say at that stage is, think about where do you want to go, and start to get those experiences, maybe doing, some work placement, making contacts on LinkedIn, start making sure you get yourself out there on LinkedIn, letting people know you're working, looking, um, and just continue to write, because you will start to attract attention if you're consistent on LinkedIn. You'll start to, but it will take a while. It is not like TikTok where you will get instant gratification and get a lot of people following. It takes a long time, and it does require persistence. But if you do, you will do it. I would also say is to take a look at, who is hiring and send out speculative CVs. Look at the firms you want to send out specific speculative CVs. Let them know you're out there. Let them know you're looking. Because if you can, it will be, I think, a lot better for you if you can kind of start to develop a bit of a network. Go to, if there's any opportunities to do networking events or attend a conference or two. Sometimes they can be expensive, sometimes they're free. You just have to look and start to attend them and start to get yourself out there. And it is really about right now getting yourself known and getting yourself seen. So yes, so if you are just joining, you do like the feed, please please share, and please follow. And if you do feel so inclined, but don't feel as though you have to, please send gifts, because it does help me to know what people are liking and helps me to shape my content. And so if you're just joining, I'm Brian, Career Advice UK, owner and founder of Lead Forward Careers, found at leadstartcareers.com. On the site, there are several guides for you. Disability, talking about likely with Ethan here, um, and talking about Ethan here, the legal options, the legal route, and I do write a bit on the legalities, the legal market, so you can take a look there. You can also find some guides, some free, some minimal price and templates like CVs, cover letters, resignation, how to prepare your CV for ATS, application tracking systems, and more. So take a look. Um, and like I said too, I'm doing currently right now a free CV review. If you are interested, just mark the words, message me on TikTok, the word CV, and I will do a free CV review for you. So I think for you, Ethan, the big thing for you is start to look for and try to find a training contract, because if you can't, like I said, it may be and this is why I was gung ho on doing the solicitor route too, or barrister. But when I started to talk to barristers and solicitors, the one message that really came across, especially with the BVC, is it does take time if you don't have the contract. If you don't have the training contract, it will take you probably years. It may be years before you get something. So it may be again working, as a paralegal, and then get your experience as a paralegal, and then the firm that you're working for may bring you in as on a training contract, and that may be the route you go. So it's really been amazing this first half. Absolutely love the questions, and the time for me has really flown by. Um, so yeah, so if you do like the feed, please please share, and please follow. And if you do feel inclined, but don't feel so you have to, please send gifts, as it really does help me to know what resonates with people. It has been for me the last couple of weeks. It's been really kind of sporadic to do these live streams because in the UK here in North Yorkshire, it has been very humid at night, and so it's made sleeping difficult. It's made sleeping at night difficult. It's kept the house warm, and so it's been. Yeah. Oh well, I'm glad to hear that, Ethan, because there is opportunity. I would say to you, it's always, especially with law, it's always until you get yourself into the training contract and kind of get yourself settled. Always take a bit of a step back and always think to yourself, what is the best for you? Um, because it can be very quick. It can be, it it can be, if you're looking at the BVC, oh no, excuse me, LPC route, the solicitor route, it um, can be a very frustrating route. And like I said, for me, decided ultimately to go the non-practicing route because it was, hey, well, congratulations, Attic. So yeah. So I would just say to you, if you're stuck if you are dedicated, hey, yes. So what's your question, Attic? Um, so yes. So, hey, Katharina Fisher, thank you for the follow. Thank you all for the follow. That's really great. Thank you so much. Um, If you're just at young, I do, like I say, CVs review, and also I do CV writing for a small fee because it does take time. But I do give discounts for those who are recent graduates. Um, for you, Attic, um, if you are just finishing your GCSEs, what makes a good CV is what's called a functional CV. Focus on your skills. Yep, just focus on your skills, and it's very hard, I know, at when you're just starting out to identify any work experience, and that's fine because employers do know people who are starting out will have limited or no job experience. What you do need to show is your skills. And so, where do you get skills? You get skills from anything you've done academically, from your schoolwork, if you've done group projects, um, if you volunteer, if you have extracurriculars. Um, and again, you can include those on your CV. Um, if you have job experience, retail, and kind of doing labor type of work, again, you can put that on just to show where you're at, highlight your skills. If you have, my feeling is if you have about 2 or more years of experience, um, instead of a functional CV, I would say maybe look at chronological if you're applying in the same kind of area. So if you're looking at the retail labor area, um, you can include that. If you are still kind of, maybe looking to make a jump somewhere else, like into hospitality or maybe customer service, then maybe look at a kind of like a hybrid or a functional CV to help you. Functional CVs tend to work best for those who have limited job experience, who have jump jobs, recent graduates, or if you're looking to do um, it may be, I don't think airports do a lot with receptionists. What you would need to look at if you're looking airlines would be applying through the airline as a like a ticket agent. So if you want to work at the airport, checking people in, or working at the customer service desk to help people who may have missed their connecting flight or something, you need to look for the most part at the airline and then look at the airport you're most interested in because a lot of times these will be through the airline. If you're looking kind of more on, let's say, the baggage handler, or maybe taking calls for the airport itself, and kind of the back office things, then it may be looking at that airport itself to see what jobs they have. But most of the time, most of the jobs at the airport um, are the airlines. There's certain ones, if you're looking at, let's say, security, um, checking people as they go through security and stuff. That is, again, that's government. So there are several different people who employ at the airport. So it's just understanding what is it that you're really looking for at the airport. Um, if you're looking in the back, so when you say, excuse me, looking to work in the back, are you talking like administrative secretarial? Because if you're looking kind of like that, then what you need to be, doing is probably if you're moving from, let's say, kind of like the labor end of things, retail, is you need to probably go with a chronological CV, emphasizing your administrative skills. Okay, because stocking shelves and admin are tend to be two very completely different, um, two different sets of skills, two different areas, and so um, you will need to write a CV one for kind of like the stocking shelves, and then develop one for CV, not CV for admin because they are two very different things, and you'll need to write two separate CVs, and then as you look at the job description, find the one that's most suited, and then tailor it to match the job description. If you just send out a blanket CV without kind of tailoring it to match the job description, not to use the keywords, then one issue you're going to have is, okay, well, that's good. Have you heard anything back on them? Have you heard anything back from, let's say, Screwfix? Too soon. Okay. The piece of advice I would give you is this: make sure that when you're applying, that you're aligning, you think about your skills, think about the application, and then think about what skills you have that match the job description, and make sure you use the similar wording. So because if you don't, it may be that you may have the skills, but you haven't used the right keywords, and so you've been ranked a little bit further down. So, and again, like I say, I do have on leapstartcareers.com a guide on um how to write your CV so that it gets through the application tracking software. I do have a free, and also the free one gives you a few tips. The one that you put a small fee for gives you a lot more. So it is one. Now, Mhm. No problem. I hope to see you back again. Hey, Christopher and Cameron and Jack. Good to see you. Yeah, well, hasta la vista, Christopher. Um, well, good luck on your applications, Addict. Keep me updated on how it goes. Um, so yes. So coming down to the last 20 minutes or here. So remember, I'm Brian, Career Advice UK, taking your questions today. It's been a very busy and very interesting day. Absolutely love the questions that I'm getting. We've talked about a bit about AI, law careers, and more. So and also we've talked about application, functional CVs versus chronological, and a whole slew of stuff. And to let you know, I'll be back right now, provided it stays it's cool in North Yorkshire. I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. British Summer Time, taking your questions. If you do like the feed, please please share, and please follow. And if you do feel so inclined, but don't feel so you have to, please send gifts, because it does help me to know what is resonating with people. You know, and so, kind of getting back, I think it's a good question. And it's always one that I do come back from time to time, because it's a question that pops up. It is this idea about, is AI taking over? And I've done some content on this a little while ago talking about the numbers, and I know there's been a bit of push um, by the governments trying to say it's AI that's killing the jobs, um, and there is some evidence right now to suggest that's not completely the case. Um, and the reality is kind of like this. I think with AI, we are facing, hey Marino, Jesus. Um, I think right now we're facing a a similar situation like we did um, with computers when computers started to come into made it out of the mainframe type of structure and um, coming into out of the mainframe and being able to sit in the office and also the home. And we kind of saw this um, kind of starting to happen and make it in the marketplace around in the 80s, early 90s. Um, and so what we saw in the 80s was primarily the kind of the compartmentalization, the miniaturization, taking a mainframe computer, which would require, a big, huge chunk of space and getting it down into, you know, keyboard, basically. Um, and once we were able to do that, we started to bring it in. We started to use what was already existing between universities and government, um, kind of what is the primitive internet to allow various research institutions to communicate. And we just brought it into a larger, I don't know, made it on a larger scale, which is now the internet. And so, as we made that big, huge technological leap in the 80s and 90s, um, one of the big things was this kind of very kind of futuristic idea that everything would be run by computers. Computers would order our groceries. Computers would monitor how much food we had and start to order. Um, it would be everything would be connected. We would be working at home. There would be no need for the office. There's would be no need for a lot of jobs, and a lot of the jobs would just be taken over by computers, and the few jobs that would exist would be people supporting computers, people programming and all that. So it would be a kind of this very kind of futuristic. But what we started to see during this is a lot of pushback because um, people didn't want computers ordering. People didn't like shopping online for certain things, especially like clothing and food, because people wanted to be able to, tap that cantaloupe to see if it was at the point of eating, if it was fresh, if it was, ripe enough, and again, clothes, because again, monitors kind of to a certain degree slightly distort color, and it's hard to idealize the size of something without being able to see it. And so when computers were making it into the marketplace, one of the things is we really people fought against, was this idea that we can't allow technology to take over all parts of our lives because it would make us irrelevant. We would lose contact with people, and we would, and with no idea what we're getting, because it's very hard to see the quality. It's hard to, have this feel And so again, being able to feel things, see things, making it tangible. And so the roles that, were really scheduled to go, like teachers and cashiers, for example, have stayed because people want that kind of human to human contact. Um, and what we've seen over time with like cashiers and stuff, like with cashiers, I use them because I think they are a good example, is this transformation. So cashiers may do some checking out, but they're also there as a way, as a check on the technology to ensure that, if there's an error, to correct that error at the source of the error, and also and to provide that type of contact because people still want that contact. And I think with AI, I think, the same argument is coming because one of the things I've read is, for AI to succeed, it needs to make things more efficient, not to replace humans. And that is exactly what we saw 30 years ago when when computers started to make it into um, the workplace, and the computers and the internet started to become very commonplace. And so we started to see, this whole transformation. And so what we're beginning to, I think, to see with AI, certain jobs like accounting, software, um, being mm, a bit more, um, automated because AI can now write code. AI can take over some of the repetitive tasks, and like transcribing. It's not at the point yet where it can be 100% accurate with 100% memory, where it can continuously remember things. Um, it still takes a lot of prompting, but it is beginning to get there. And so I think for me, where I see things is, I think, AI will require more people, create more jobs on oversight. Because if you take a look at the experience with computers, what you started to see were certain jobs like secretaries kind of go to the wayside because everyone could then, with computers, hey, Alex and Lynn and Cameron, can start to, create their own templates, their own letter templates. You didn't need somebody who had that specialized knowledge um, to do it because anyone could do it. And so the job just kind of fell, for the most part, out to the wayside. And I think you will see, to a certain extent, certain jobs going to the wayside. But what you will also start to see, like you do now, are jobs like, cybersecurity. From computers, you start to see cybersecurity jobs. You started to see more complex programming jobs, data jobs, a data manager, a whole thing around whole new areas of jobs. And I think that is where we're going to be heading. I think with AI, I think we'll see some jobs fall to the wayside and be overtaken while we see the creation of new jobs. And I don't think it needs to be an alarmist. I think we just need to be prepared, learn about the technology. And again, those who picked up computer skills, picked up IT skills, were the ones who were able to advance into jobs. The ones who kind of survived, the ones who didn't, really were left behind. And again, it really is, again, that situation, embrace it. You know, or lose it. So, yes, so coming down to the last 10 minutes here. Again, plan is to be back tomorrow, 4 a.m. British summer time. Like I said, during the kind of the heat with the heat of the summer, it does make it it is kind of touch and go a little bit about doing these because live streams, because if it does get too hot, um they don't get a lot of sleep, or it gets to be too hot where I do my lives from, then I won't go ahead and do it. And the best thing to always do is just check my profile right before you join, just to make sure I am live or going to plan on going live, because sometimes I may go to bed with the well intention of doing the live, but when I wake up, it may just be too hot, too humid, or I didn't get enough sleep or slept too long. And so um, it may be a situation like that. So it's always good to check about 3:30 if the live is going ahead. And if the live's going ahead or not. Um, and it is a good way to check, probably the best way. If you see me do a video announcing that I'm going live at 4 a.m., typically it's probably a really good sign that I will do it. But again, I will always say don't rely on the video. Take a look at my profile about 3:30 p.m., 3:30 a.m., excuse me. And it should be a good tip. And again, I still have a little time. I can take a question. I'm not in a hurry. So today I can take a question or two if I do run over. It's not a big issue. um, Big of an issue. So if you have a question, feel free to put it down. If you do like the feed, please please share, and please follow. And if you do feel so inclined, but don't feel so you have to, please send gifts, as it does help me to know, you know, what people like, and it helps me to plan my content. And I would also encourage you to take a look at my content, because I do a lot on the topic of careers under Career Advice UK. And there is a lot of content that covers the whole gamut. I do have some content on UCAS, doing your questions, choosing majors. I've done a lot on psychology major because that's one question that comes up a lot. I would also encourage you to head over to leapstartcareers.com, because I do have a lot of templates, CV, cover letter resignation. I do have guides on like negotiating your starting salary, ATS, getting your CV ready for ATS software, application tracking system. I also do have the UK Jobseeker Playbook 2026, UK Career Change 2026 books, along with interviewing tips and advice and disability guide, just to name a whole slew of what's there for you. Plus, I do offer a free 15-minute call to talk through anything that you may have. So, yeah. So it is beginning to wind down. So the last 5 minutes. Again, hey Cameron, hey Jack, hey Lynn. Good to see you. So if you do have a question, feel free to pop it down, because I will pick it up first come, first serve. And I would strongly encourage you to take a look at, the content that I have, because I do cover a whole slew of career-related topics. And like I said, I will be back tomorrow 4 a.m. Um, I'll be back. So I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. And like I said, just take a look at my profile just to confirm. So anyone has any questions, feel free to put it down. And I will pick it up. And again, I spent a little time today talking about the UK job market. And why are you, to answer the question, if you're sending out CVs, why aren't you hearing back? And it is very much, as we kind of wind down here, it's very much the market right now. It is roughly, if you're looking at those unemployed, there's roughly 2.5 applicants for every job. And there's currently 707,000. So you multiply that by about 2.5, you're talking, yes. You mean, good to block, yeah. Anyhow, um, yeah, so getting back to it, so the reason why it is difficult, there's roughly 700,000 jobs, 2.5 applicants for every job, which means there's roughly nearly 2 million people applying for jobs, for the jobs that are available, not to mention those who are looking to change careers or change jobs. So you're talking roughly 2.1 million applicants who are applying for 707,000 jobs. And it means right now that employers can be highly selective. In their hiring, it means that you need to be strategic in the sense that you really need to make sure that your CV aligns with the job description, and not to send out blanket CVs, because blanket CVs just don't get you noticed and it won't get picked up. You can cut your job search time by being strategic and making sure that you're applying for jobs that closely match your skill set, instead of just picking anything that sounds vaguely familiar that you could potentially do, because that strategy may have worked 2 years ago, but it doesn't work now. And it is going to be, a very competitive market for some time. And I would suggest to you, if you are looking for a job, don't discount agencies, because agencies can and do help. It is just, excuse me. I would say to you, if you are looking, make sure you look at the agency aspect, because a lot of times when economic situations and it gets to be costly to hire employees, employers will turn to agencies instead of offering them as permanent jobs. It is a way, because it does limit their risk and exposure by doing it that way. So again, take a look at agencies. And again, I do have on livestartcareers.com guides and written about agencies, so you can have something to help to guide you. Hey, Matthew, good to see you. Cameron and Nick, good to see you. So beginning to wind down. Thank you, everyone, for the likes, the shares, the follows. And I will be back tomorrow at 4 a.m. British Summer Time.